Thank you so much, Leohan, and good evening to everyone. I'm hoping that you all can hear me well. Awesome. So, as Leohan said, tonight we will be joined by a powerhouse of a woman. I have the honor today to have a conversation with our guest who sits somewhere at the intersection of strategy, business development, entrepreneurship, and leadership. She has co founded several businesses and has over 12 years' experience in the financial services sector, and more recently has been the chief executive officer of a fast growing asset management firm right here in Cape Town. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I could take you through the rest of her bio, which is extensive and very impressive, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to ask you to join me for the next 90 minutes. Let's have a conversation with her and get to know who's this lady behind the accolades and the titles. So, without further ado, let's welcome Tshego Dichabe. Thank you so much.
Hello. Hello, Diana. I'm feeling nervous myself now.
Oh dear, with an impressive profile like this, I would not be nervous at all.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm really thankful to ABSIP and AWIF for the invitation. Thank you.
Awesome stuff. So we'll jump right in. Tshego, many people would have heard that you were a CEO of an asset management firm in South Africa, a black woman at that, which is very impressive. And this is a seat that you walked away from about 7 months ago now, which maybe some do not know. Can you take us back to December 2025? What was going on in your mind at that point in time?
um, okay, wow. We're jumping straight in. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Diana, and welcome to everyone who's on the webinar. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story and the conversation. So I was basically also trying to buy time so that I can answer it honestly to those who are listening. I think for me, 7 months ago, towards the end of my time at Aeon Investment Management, can I speak about the actual day?
You may, please.
Okay, the actual day, I was a I was a mess.
Oh, yeah.
I was a mess in the sense of my brain had been so focused in a business like and business like process to hand over, do checklists, make sure everyone is comfortable, everyone is settled.
Yeah.
Um, and by the time the day came, I was exhausted, but I was grateful, but I was relieved. And I was also saying, oh, I'm free. um, so obviously from my tone, you can see that there was a lot of emotions rushing through. But on the actual day, as I left the building for the last time, the team had said their goodbyes early in the day. And also, I'd already had a farewell earlier in the week and everything with, good well wishes, the gifts, and all that. But I will say that whew, I actually had an ugly, deep cry as I left the office. As I left the office, driving, had to actually stop on the shoulder of the road because I just became overwhelmed with it, and I had to call a family member to actually just talk me through it in that moment in time. So basically, that is what summarized my last day. But in terms of the process towards the last day, I think there was a mechanical focus on ensuring that there was an orderly, considered manner of handover, and that the handover was well communicated across all the different stakeholders. So yeah, that's how my my term ending felt like.
It's actually interesting that you mentioned that because I was actually going to ask your handover transition period was about 8 months. Now, most CEOs would give you 3, 6 at most. Why was it so long that you gave Aeon Investment Manager as management firm as a handover period?
So the reason around that, can I give the context?
Yes.
So yeah, so that I don't just drive straight into the answer. So the context is that I'd been with Aeon for nearly 9 years, right? From 5 billion when we started in 2017. Sorry, when I started in 2017. I mean, the business had already been around for over 12 years by the time I joined in 2017. And now you go and you find yourself almost 9 years later, you're leaving the business. The business has changed, you've changed, and you're about to embark on a sabbatical.
Yeah.
What I discovered was that I had to be very considerate about the departure. And actually, what happened for me is 2 years prior, I was part of a leadership fellowship that we had to engage with very deep introspective questions, And one of the things I discovered at that time was that I think I have something that wants more,
Oh,
but I don't know what that more looks like and what it is. So I left the fellowship very thankful, very grateful for that year process I was in it, but I hadn't settled who I am and what I want. So what happened is I spent then another year speaking with my very close mentors. One of them, he's a former CEO of an asset management firm. So he has deep experience. And I asked him, hey, I think I want to leave and this is the situation.
yeah.
And he basically gave me an insight of what pitfalls to look out for. And then I spoke to another mentor as well simultaneously, and she has extensive experience in asset consulting, and also is a respected veteran in our industry with over 25 years of experience. And she not only understood the industry, but she also understood the dynamic for companies like Aeon. I mean, it's a black-owned asset manager, established, but also still growing. They're still growing pains. And they both advised me through that process to say, when you do it, you need to consult with Asif in a way that he's also part of the decision,
Okay.
and how you hand over, right? Because you owe it to your stakeholders to make sure that the handover is smooth. And I fully understood what they were saying because I mean, when I joined the industry, I grew up and I saw the the leadership transitions that were happening, and some of them were chaotic at certain financial institutions. And I remembered how the markets reacted to those instances, and I realized that I owe it to myself and to Eon to make sure that this is done right, right? So I think what I'm trying to say is the reason it became a longer or an extended period was because once I sat down with Asif, I thanked him for our journey. I told him that, hey, I'm looking at my next. I don't know what it is exactly. I'm considering a sabbatical. And when it does take place, I want to know what works for you. When do you want my last day to be?
Oh,
Contractually, it's 3 months, but based on the advice and the counsel that I received, it's best to, navigate this with your input. And then he asked me to serve until the end of December. So that made it 8 months, 7 months, 8 months notice instead. Yeah.
wow. I remember you wrote a note about what you said to Asif. You said that his dream made room for you to be able to dream. I like that that's the dynamic that you two had. Him being the founder and you being the CEO. That's outgoing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really lovely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you don't spend that much time with someone without, admiring.
that,
Yes,
that
yes.
deep bond. No, that's a really good lesson we can learn about leadership and how you engage with people as well as how you leave well when you do transition out of a company. But now onto the exciting stuff. So it's now been 7 months. You're on sabbatical.
Uh-huh.
And I think one of the more interesting things for me was finding out that the first thing you did was book a trip to China when you were on sabbatical. Tell us, why did you pick China? How did you get that? And how was your experience?
So, Diana, you're in the asset management space, you're the CFA charter. I mean, China's a big deal in our industry. So I think in landscape, specifically for the retirement industry, I mean, a lot of portfolios have a holding in that region, right? So I was around that type of information, but I've always had a deep-seated curiosity around China. And I had actually taken a holiday the year before to China. 2 weeks was in Beijing. I fell in love with it. But when I came back, friends of mine were like, no, you're disillusioned. China's not that good. Like, there are issues around that country. It's because you were, in just one space. And I spent the year, I think I was following a lot of content creators who were from China, a lot of Instagram, YouTube, book reading, getting insights into China. And I said, I need to go back. So that's what I did. When I decided to take the sabbatical, it was to say, one of the things I'm going to do is take a solo adventure to satisfy this intellectual curiosity I had around China, and also as a move to say China is seen as the future, right? I know there's a narrative that was growing at the time, and specifically last year, from the USA around China, and I felt like it was a narrow narrative, and I wanted to identify for myself how, whether I was disillusioned with my first visit, or if I took the advice of all these resources that I was following and listening to, go do the trip and experience China as natively as you can. So I traveled across 5 cities over 25 days, 25 or 24 days. And yeah, it was an amazing adventure experience. And I came back changed. But most importantly, I came back rested because I was like completely out of routine. And that was great.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Okay, so first trip you go to Beijing.
Yes.
Second trip you go to 5 different cities. What's the best city in China if someone has never been?
Oh, you can't choose. I'm sorry. No, you can't choose. No, that is an impossible. That is impossible. I think because I had so many experiences so many great experiences in each and every city, but also for me, some of the cities I actually had friends there, so I could engage with them and also talk to their specific communities. And as I was talking to their specific communities, I I got to get so much like on the ground insight that didn't exist before. So I don't think it's a place of one city is better than the other. It depends on what your purpose is. And my purpose was to observe as much as possible of this region that the world has its lens on, its money invested in or towards, and to sort of develop my own view around it. Yeah. So no, go to every city. If like every city has something.
I only have 24 leave days in the year, so I'm gonna take all my leave days and go to China.
Yes, and it's gonna be like the most affordable trip ever. Like, yeah, like the day they do the World Cup in China,
Yeah.
I'm there.
Wow. Okay, no, take me with you. So let's get a bit deeper. You are on sabbatical, and you did write that clarity is really linear and reinvention is really tidy.
Okay.
That sounds like a very deep line. Can you share a bit about what inspired that line and what you were processing at that time?
I think the difficult part about my decision was that it's not easily understandable. You are at the pinnacle of a leadership opportunity within a growing firm, and you also a black woman at that, a young black woman at that. There's so much to look forward to, right? But now you're making the reverse decision. You're stepping away from all of it,
Yeah.
and you're not even giving the people who are watching you make this decision a clear view of what to expect of you next, right? So that's why I'm saying to you that clarity is not linear.
Yeah.
So goes into my next step. My next step is that I had a half-baked idea of what I'm doing. So if I have to reinvent what I need to do, it means that I don't understand what I'm doing exactly, right? All I know is take a sabbatical. How long is the sabbatical? I think it's going to be a year. I think it's going to be 7 months. No clarity around it. Where you going to go? I think I want to teach English in China. No, I think I want to be at home and, studying.
Yeah.
So it was a messy process of discovering what do you want. So by the time December comes, all I know is you're going to China and you're going to rest, and in between it, you're going to figure it out. So that's what I mean. I mean that when you are in the process of discovering your next, or you are in the process of going to the next level of your becoming, you don't necessarily know how to do that. So you are figuring it out as it goes. But the difference, I think, in my case is that I consulted quite widely with women, with people, with guests who were in the industry, who actually understood a lot around sabbaticals, how to take them, how to prepare, and all that. And because I was able to do that, I ended up, finding that I'm good.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I like that you already answered my next question, which is going to be if you have a practical tip for someone who might be considering, reinventing themselves. But you did say you consulted women. So I guess that would be the practical tip, unless you have a second one that you'd like to share.
Um. Okay. Give me the question again so I can just make sure that I'm.
For someone who is navigating their own transition or even considering it, looking at your story and how you planned out the season, what would you advise them practically to do if they are considering it for themselves?
I think the easiest thing to consider was the financial aspect, right?
Ah.
What you're going to do, how you're going to do it. You have savings, you have bonuses that you receive maybe, and all that. And once that is in place, you're like, yeah, everything's good. But the other thing that I found was very key was to have a community who's going to check on you. Um, because my sabbatical was so unstructured, one of the things that a friend actually introduced me to another friend, because we had this amazing lunch, and at this lunch I meet this phenomenal lady. Her name is Ona, and Ona had been an audit partner at a large audit firm, and when she turned 40, she had been working at the business, I believe, for like 16 years, and she decided that she's out
Oh.
and she's taking a sabbatical. And so by the time I interact with her, I'm interacting at a point in time where she is telling me I'm in my sabbatical period. I've really been 18 months into it. I'm only going to close it off when I'm ready, and these are the tips, right? But what ends up happening is she becomes now my mentor in the process. So while I've been on my sabbatical, she's the one checking on me, and now she's back in the job market, working actually for a great institution, doing phenomenal work, and she is the mentor helping me through understanding what you should be doing during your sabbatical, what you should not be doing, how to stay current in terms of obviously, you don't want to lose connection to the industry, but also what to disconnect from to be able to properly take the deep rest and reflective period and all that. Yeah, there's a lot. But I think have a community that's going to also keep you accountable to that process. Yes, it shouldn't be open-ended. Yes.
Okay. I like that you literally segueing into my next question, because what you should get yourself involved in and what you should disconnect from. So many people might not know that one of the projects you took on during the season was to be a strategist as well as co-producer on a podcast, The Chatter's Table, which is hosted by Yonelisa Pete. I'm curious to know, how did you choose this particular project?
Okay, so back to the advice I got about. So then another friend, Ayanda, she also had taken a sabbatical, and Ayanda was very pedantic to say, Tshego, you must volunteer. You must find something to do. You cannot just sit. And I said, oh, obviously I'm gonna, do some consulting work. Or they're like, no, you must find something that's consistent, right? And I was thinking and pondering, and I'd done a few side projects with friends who wanted consulting in their businesses. But what was beautiful was that towards the end of my term at Aeon, Yonelisa had just had conversations with his community, and he wanted to start a podcast. And I mean, I'd seen him live through and dream up and become established as a CFA charter now, and the charters table. I mean, he had a lunch in Johannesburg, I believe, yes. And when he came back, he was like, hey, I think I want to do this. And me naturally loving to build I was like, yeah, you can do it. He says, I think this is the strategy you must do. You must turn it into, this is. And I think one of the things was, and this is the part I think I love, is you get to dream with someone. And that's what he allowed me to do, to dream with him. And while we were dreaming about his podcast and his thoughts on it and what he wants to do and putting it all together, we ended up landing on, hey, this should be a more formal, type arrangement. So by the time the podcast went live, I mean, we were now like sort of a good duo doing it together. But I think for me, it was being inspired also by his vision, wanting to create impact beyond himself and his story, and wanting to broaden the access and the understanding of the industry, which is something I'm passionate about. And also seeing how these stories matter. Like, these stories matter. I mean, you were one of the guests, Diana. Let's not play around it. But the Charters Table is more than just a podcast. It's more than just a conversational platform. It is driving the narrative of the importance of using stories to build people, because when we build people, we build the capacity for this nation. And yeah, that's where we're standing. Hey.
Wow. You said something powerful. The stories matter, and I mean, I listen to them every other week, and it's such impactful stories that you're telling. I think your tagline is the untold stories of charter holders and friends of the charter. So, in a way, I think you would be a friend of the charter.
Yes, I'm a friend of the charter.
So let's take then like a deep dive into your story and find out the untold parts of Tshego.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go back down memory lane to a younger version of you. You grew up in the Free State, right?
Yeah, we're up in the
Tell
Free
us
State.
about life growing up. And I want to know in particular the people that shaped the woman that you are today.
Sure, this is a long. Where do I start the story?
Okay. I would like to find out more particularly. I read somewhere where you said that your career can be defined as the prayers of your grandmothers. And I thought, wow, this is like a woman
Okay.
event. And you spoke so powerfully about that. I want to find out what inspired that line in particular.
Growing up in the Free State, there are stories that are untold about my upcoming and my becoming, right? And one of the key important things is that what is it that my grandmothers would have appreciated about my journey? These are the women who built the future that I'm standing in right now, right? So I would go to say that I am the child of two teachers. Both my parents are teachers, and I was also the granddaughter of both my grandmothers first started out as domestic workers because of the way that apartheid was what is the word was set up. And what further happened is that my grandfathers actually were groundsmen in various places, right? So I do not come from a place of privilege. And also, my parents being first generation university students meant that I have basically been now given the baton. So the baton has passed for the first time over to me, in a sense, myself and my brothers. So, what it means for me to be sitting here as a symbol to my grandmothers. And I'm so fortunate that both of them got to see me actually elevate, or let's say graduate and move along into my career, see my dreams starting to come true, is that I realized the power of the hope that we give to our communities when we succeed. When we do not succeed, it doesn't just affect us, it affects the broader community. And that is something, Diana, I will say to you, is what I have taken away from my stories predominantly, is that and back to the charter table, for instance, when we share our stories and when we talk about our challenges and what we have overcome, and we show then where we are standing once we everything is set up in our lives and we look like we are successes, um it motivates the next generation, right? And when you live in a country like South Africa, where there's high unemployment, where there is challenges in terms of economic growth, I mean, we know how GDP growth is standing versus other emerging markets and also globally. We know the issues that stand in terms of the political issues that we are experiencing as a nation.
At this point in time, say you are like in your high school years, did you know at that point that you would be a leader? Did you feel people speaking that into your life at that season?
So my answer is going to sound so contrarian, but no,
Oh,
I did not see myself as a leader. I've always found myself the person who preferred to support other leaders. So I enjoy actually being in the background. But because the nature that I have of jumping in and supporting, and because I like to also speak up, and it seems like you want to be the leader. But I think the analysis is that I'll actually just close the gap. If there's a gap and I can meet it, then I do it. But no, I actually shied away from leadership. I was actually having a conversation last week with someone, and I was explaining to him that in high school, when it was time for like prefect, elections and stuff like that, I never put my name up because I was selfish. I was like, no, I'm here to get an education, and obviously to participate in certain things, to get, what's not accreditations, what is it, credentials that I've made it in certain things, but not in leadership circles. I was not that child. But I think most of that, what informed that for me was that I always felt that leadership was something for others, and it was about titles, and it was about um desiring for what is it, prominence, right? To be prominent. And I actually realized that was not something I wanted. I wanted to be behind the scenes. Yes, in certain things where I'm excelling, I want to have the public recognition for it, but I don't necessarily want to be a leader. I don't know. That's my answer. But when I grew up, I became a more self-aware individual and realized that you step into leadership to serve. It's about service. And I think where I probably learned that was at church, where we were taught about servant leadership, and that the whole model around faith is about, or the way Jesus served is that you have to be a service-led leader, right? So that model of leadership I subscribe to, but to be a leader just for the sake of a title or for the sake of sitting in the seat and being the one everyone looks to, no. There must be a reason. What gap are you covering? What solution are you bringing? Someone I listened to recently actually said leadership is about solving problems. So if we're not solving problems, I don't want to be there.
Oh, bless. That's such a good answer. Like, I love your view on leadership, which is probably why this is a very good session to
Yes.
have you on. Let's fast forward now a few years, right?
Yes.
Because I remember when I was in high school, they would always say that, study the CASA stream, you're going to become a CEO. Did you study CASA or accounting in varsity? Is that how you became CEO?
Okay, I'm going to look to the audience and say, guys, I was on the CA journey initially. When I did my undergrad, it was with every intention of becoming a CASA. But as I journeyed along it, the first time I encountered failure, this was in third year, it was terrible. I it was the first time I was encountering a failure, and when this failure happened, I was like, yo, I don't know what I'm gonna do, God. Like, who am I when I have failed? I mean, the first time you're encountering failure, you're on a bursary, your parents have never had to worry about you academically or anything in relation to your career. And then I think that's when I started having the deviation around. I don't think I might continue with the CA journey, but I would strive to. But also, I was experiencing a time in my life where I was confused because I had a company in varsity, and this company looked like it was gonna do well, and I could throw myself into it. And at the same time, now I'm feeling at the thing that's brought me to varsity, but I have to finish it. So there were a lot of conflicting decisions. But eventually, what happened is I actually stepped off the journey. And when I look back now, I do regret it. I think I should have stuck it out. But then again, when I look back on my life, I see the grace of God. And because of that grace, I can say, no, but everything worked for your good. So why then are you looking back with that regret? But I would encourage Tshego from the past to say, stick the journey if I could back then. But then again, it could have changed the trajectory of my story as well. So I don't know. Diana, there's a lot of moving parts there.
Part of like your university journey, how you co-founded Genesis Africa, and then it went on to win Best New Enterprise for Job Creation in the Free States. Tell the people more about Genesis Africa. Like, what was the business about? How did you then create the jobs at the point in time? You were so young, also.
Um. So, oh wow, Genesis Africa. I'm gonna just backtrack a bit.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure everybody got the story. So what happened is, remember, I failed in my third year. And when I failed in my third year, I took some time out that December. My parents were shocked. Everybody was like, what, you failed? What? And I was walking around with the shame. And I felt that I needed a reset in life. I needed to understand, is there a future for me? How do I craft the future going forward? So I took a few days off. And when I took those few days off in December, I just went into deep prayer and fasting and stuff. And what I came out with is an understanding of where I think my vision in life was going to be. I knew that it was still going to be in the business world. I knew that I wanted to be a contributor to, dealing. My holy discontent was always been inspirationless living, youth unemployment, job creation, and I wanted to be a solution provider to those things. So when I restart my third year, then following year, I'm restarting with that passion that I'm getting delayed in my finalization of my purpose in terms of my academic journey in my undergrad. But what is now happening is I get to listen to the story of myself and say, Tshego, walk every day with faith, right? So what happens is I actually had friends in varsity that we had served together on a student organization called SIFE at the time, Students in Free Enterprise, years prior. And one of the friends, he was studying economics. And Yesu, he was like, hey, I think we should start a business together. We should all come up with an idea and then sit around that idea. And we ended up starting Genesis Africa. So it was a co-vision. And then in this co-founding as students still in varsity, we were like, we want to address job creation issues in our country. So let's start a business. And that's how Genesis Africa came about. It was about meeting the need of saying, in the informal sector, or let's say semi-urbanized areas, there is a lot of use of artisans, and this is very informal in terms of its arrangement between homeowners and artisans. We're going to come in as the middleman, arrange it, formalize the process, and when we do so, we will obviously take a cut, right, of that whole project management. And we were about 7 students of us, different faculties and disciplines, and we built a business, and the business started getting recognition, and we won the best enterprise one. I think we got a prize of about 200,000. And then we opened a cleaning division of our in the business. And yeah, I learned a lot. But what Genesis Africa for me was around developing knowledge around what makes a business work, marketing, market positioning, revenue, what drives revenue, cash flow, dealing with employees. We actually had when we had to close down the cleaning division because there came a time where we felt that it was not sustainable. It was not breaking even to the point that we felt was rewarding the risk that we were taking. So when we closed it, the cleaners went on strike and took us to the CCMA. And I remember, have one of my co-founders was Stanley. I'm still great friends with Stanley, and Stanley then had to go talk to the labor offices and department and do visits there to find out, okay, what must we do as a business? And yeah, I think my role was I was finance director because I was studying BI, and I was then responsible for all the the financials in the business. But we all had different roles. But the 2-3 years that we worked together in that business, building it up, we all learned so much. Today we have varying careers that we have followed. Some of us are still in business. Some now working for banks. And Stanley works in Canada for one of the largest banks in Canada, and he has extensive experience here in South Africa in asset management. And he actually was my mentor at the time. Anesu is still in construction. Ayanda works in philanthropy now, but she also did her MBA, and she's very involved in venture creation and stuff. So we all have various background. Sarah owns her own educational company. So yeah, we learned a lot. And the reason I'm saying we and not just I is that their journeys also informed a lot for me around what it takes to build a business, what we had to go through, and that experience working it together better equipped me as well when I now started joining institutional asset management around what are the key things you look for in business, when you're building it up.
Oh my word. Perfect, perfect ending. Because now I am trying to bridge the gap as you're speaking. You're so passionate about the business, but then here you are a couple of years later at Aeon Investment Management. And I'm wondering, how did we get there? So can you share briefly how you got to Aeon and now you're going away from this business that you started,
Yes.
going to investment management? How did you get there? And okay, this not there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I share this story a lot, and sometimes I feel like everyone has heard it already, but I will then share it just for the benefit of those who have not heard the story, because there is a lesson that I always share around it. Is that, guys, I am the classical example of someone who stumbled into place. I didn't have a defined pathway of this is how you go from point A to B and this is how you're going to start in institutional asset management. Da, da, da. No, like I stumbled into place. The move from closing or leaving Genesis Africa, when I stepped away, it was I had just completed my undergrad, worked in the business post studies, and then I said to myself, no, I want to go into finance, right? I'm not going to go the auditing route. And when I decided to do that, I joined Sanlam, and I'm going to Sanlam Personal Finance, right? And there I learned a lot around financial planning and distribution. Then, I kid you not, I meet Helena Conradi one of the days through my work at Sanlam. She was on a roadshow sharing about Satrix, right? And I remember after her presentation, I was so blown away. I was like, the CEO, this what she's doing, and she's obviously Satrix is passive index investing, right? But what she was sharing around how they think and the offering and how they had built the business. I think at the time they were about 50 billion, right? But the time she exited, it was much larger. But I remember that day I had an aha moment. I said, so there is another side to this. There is the investment management side that I need to get towards or closer to, or and through that, that's where I made the pivot or the decision. And then every decision I made then led me to the place I'm at. But now I'm connecting with the story I want to share. Do I still have time with you? Do I still have time with everyone? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so I actually was with PPS Investments. PPS Investments, I actually started in Bloemfontein. And then when I moved to Cape Town, they were moving me towards supporting the institutional, the investment specialist team. Yes. And the reason I have to share this, so that you can see the leap that I was about to make in my life. I had a friend who was actually a member of ABSIP. And she actually worked as an analyst in one of the larger asset managers. And she had an invitation for ABSIP. ABSIP was going to be they had invited Nonhlanhla Nene. It was just after Nenegate. So Nenegate has just happened. And now a few months later, they have the former finance minister coming to speak. And I had just landed in Cape Town. It was my first month in Cape Town. And my friend who knows me that I like things and I will appreciate this, she's like, I know you don't know about ABSIP, but you want to come? And I say, yes, I want to come, definitely. So I ended up going to the event. And at the event, I was actually not sitting far from the COO at the time at Aeon Investment Management, always Asmal. And we got to talk, and then post the talk by former finance minister Nonhlanhla Nene, we engaged in networking. In the networking session, we spoke, and this is the part where I have to take a pause. The night before, very key, guys, the night before, as I am joining Cape Town, I'm in Cape Town, I'm now joining the home cell community from my church so that I can be planted in the fellowship of other believers. So they were having a social. So at the social, I meet all the other leaders and members, and I end up talking to Gerdes. So Gerdes was one of the leaders, and somehow we talked a lot about my work, my life and stuff, and he gave me an instruction. He said, Tshego, promise me this. Next time someone asks you what you do, promise me you will tell them what you want to do. Don't tell them about what you do. Tell them what you want to do. Focus on that. And I was like, oh, sure, Gerdes. I think I was eating pizza. I was like, yeah, sure, Gerdes. It's great. I'll do that. And so back again, unpause. Now, when is the next time I'm getting asked? What do I do? It's the next night. I'm at the ABSIP event, standing next to Uwais. We've just had this great conversation. And I say to him, can I not, instead of telling you what I currently do, can I focus on what I want to do? So I go on this tale of saying, remember the Helena Conradi conversation I had with you earlier? I say, I want to be in institutional asset management. I want to be close to the client relationships, investor relations. I want to understand how portfolio managers work, and I want to be close to the action, but not be, an analyst. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to be that. And lo and behold, Aeon was looking for a junior business development officer. They had a vacancy that they were trying to fill, and he said, send me your CV. Here's my business card. Apply. And that's what I did the next day. I actually consulted with Stanley because he was
He's your old business partner.
Yeah, he's my old, because now he's in the asset management space. And then he's like, take it, Tshego, take it. You'll learn so much if you go to a boutique asset manager. And what ended up happening is what everyone sees now as history, is that I went to the interview, went through the recruitment process that they had at Aeon, and I was chosen. But I will say this, when I was in my interview process, I was very direct as well about, I have a vision, but I want to plug into your vision. I have a plan for my life, and this plan is obviously emanating from that vision that I wrote down when I had failed a few years earlier, and I now understood what I'm about and what I'm not about. So when I sat with ASIF and Always, and I was accepting the job offer, or I was in the interview process, I spoke about who I am and who I hope to be in the business. But the lesson I want actually everyone to take from this long story is that we are so quick sometimes to talk about what we're currently experiencing that we lose the vision for what we want, right? So it was fortunate for me, and I take it as God's grace over my life, that I had a mentor like Khadis who was very direct in giving me direction of how to speak about a certain point, right? But what I plug it back to is he was redirecting me about vision. Like, the casting of vision is actually so key to you going to the places you are planning or want to go towards. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, based on what you're speaking, vision and just knowing what you want played a key role in your journey. And you walked into Aeon as a junior business development officer. Would you say that you continued to have a vision to be more while you were in your role? Did you foresee yourself actually running the organization as you walked in?
When I walked into the business, I was grateful for the opportunity. I was just aware that there was a steep learning curve, and I was committing myself to it, right? I mean, I went from personal retail to IFA market to now I'm in the institutional space. So the learning curve was, you know. Um, I didn't have a CFA as well. So at the time, I just only done my undergrad, my accounting. So I remember I'd registered for an investment planning with the University of the Free State, right? So I did a postgrad in investment planning just to, better grasp. But what I'm trying to say is, no, I didn't. When I started, I just knew that I'm good at business, right? I understand business and the dynamics of business. I've also learned a lot to work with people through the work that I did at church, and also the experience of managing staff as well in Genesis Africa and other ventures that I was part of before. But what I also had learned was that I am an entrepreneur. So years before, I came across the difference between entrepreneurship and entrepreneur. So there are people who are entrepreneurial, but they're entrepreneurial within an organization. And I had started identifying myself as that more, that I come in and then I exercise my entrepreneurial flair and inclination. So that's what I knew I was bringing. I didn't know that this is where I could end up being, right? But in the journey of my time at Aeon and the growth that we were experiencing, building, being a trusted advisor, I started having a vision about, one day I want to be a C-suite leader of a business. I hadn't said Aeon, I just said a business. So I started investigating doing an MBA. And that's also another practical tip I'd give to anyone listening, is that your performance appraisals are not just conversations around your performance at the actual entity that you're working at. It is an opportunity for you to have an engagement around what your future aspirations are. Are they in alignment with the organization? If not, then is there a realignment conversation that needs to happen? And if the outcome is not going to be favorable for both of us, it's also now an indication for you to say, okay, let me start planning differently, right? So I actually wrote down in my performance appraisals, hey, I have the intention of doing an MBA. And the reason I want to do an MBA is I want to formalize my understanding and my knowledge around business and managing a business and running a business, because I plan one day to be a C-suite leader. So that's when ASIF became aware. I think it was around almost 3 years into the business that, oh, you have aspirations for that. And due to the growth of where we were as a firm, and he had been the de facto CEO, CIO, I think that also shifted something in him to say, you know what, there's an opportunity here, and over the next coming months and further performance appraisals, we explored that conversation until we started formalizing it. And when we started formalizing it, what happened is I went into a CEO designate training for about 18 months, before I actually assumed the role. But yes, it started with the performance appraisal.
Okay, well, that's a very powerful tip for us going to
Yes.
mid-year performance appraisals at
Yes.
the moment.
Yes.
Okay, so I do recall it was about 5 years ago today, July 2021, when you then were announced as the CEO of Aeon Investment Management. And at the time, Asif was the founder, is the founder. He said, "This is my CEO. I believe in her," which is a really positive thing to hear, your boss telling you. But
Yes.
I'm sure that the market themselves were shocked to see such a young person, you're only 30 years old, becoming CEO. Did you feel any sense of imposter syndrome at that time? Did it feel natural for you, that transition?
Okay. I always have two ways I want to answer this, but for this platform, I have a different way I'm going to answer it. I was already doing the work in the background before anyone knew. The staff knew I was doing the work. The clients knew I was doing the work. Maybe select people outside of the business knew, but who are not like stakeholder, like immediate internal stakeholders. But what I'm trying to say is that by the time the market learns, I'm already in the role in terms of the responsibilities and the scope of the work I need to do. But what I didn't have though was the public eye of it, how being under the scrutiny of visibility, right? I was not that I was invincible. What was it? English bundles. Sorry. It's not that I was not visible. I was visible, but not to that extent. And that's what changed for me. It was I had the belief of the team, I had the belief of Asif, but it was scary now that my role is going to play out in front of so many people. And now a lot of those people also have different views on it, and some of the views were very publicly shared and some obviously were more discreetly shared. But you still have the job to do, and I remember saying to myself, every year that you survive, you need to give yourself a pat on the back.
I thought you were going to say you need to give yourself money.
No, no. No. No, you don't give yourself money. No, I'm not giving myself money. No, I mean it in the sense that because I was coming in and I understood the dynamics of our industry, especially when you are, I will say it, a Black-owned asset manager. There are different dynamics that you're dealing with from a client market perspective, and I knew the sensitivity of if we do this wrong, it can damage the firm and all that we've worked on. So I basically had to say, put your head down and just do the work, and don't lean into people's opinions. Don't lean too much on their praise either. Just do the work. And we were fortunate that as we just continued, building the business, that it kept growing and it became more and more successful. But what I am thankful for, that there were men and women though who reached out, industry leaders, peers, who were supporting, who were encouraging, who were doing check-ins, who were intentional about saying, we want to see you succeed. So I really appreciated them. I can't name all of them, but if any one of them is listening or ever hears about this conversation, that was very important for a girl who was finding her feet in performing publicly. Yes. But I think one of the things I knew I wanted for myself at the time was to say, listen, hand over the baton. You receive the baton, but hold it responsibly. Yeah, that was it.
Wow. So it's actually a good thing because you walk in, some people have doubt, but you end up being very successful in your role. The AUM went from about 6 billion to 30 billion during your tenure, which is very impressive for a small asset manager here in the industry. Today we are seeing a lot of consolidations happening. What are your views on what makes an asset manager of that size, a boutique, actually survive in times like this?
Okay. We must always remember when it comes to our space that teamwork, your biggest asset is your people. So one, I will give back to the team. I had a great team. I was part of a great team, very resilient, very committed, client-centric, hardworking, knew to put our head down. We're not a perfect organization at all. We definitely have our challenges. Um, but what I learned undeniably now about our space, asset management, institutional asset management specifically, having investment excellence is great, but it's not enough. Having client trust and building those relationships strong, phenomenal. If you can do that and do it consistently, great. But you need to have organizational capability. When I joined Aeon had strategies that had already existed for over a decade. Some of them, like one of them had already been around for almost, I think, 8, 9 years. So the firm had been around for 12 years. Yes, 12 years. And then the strategies were quite mature. But what you picked up was that people wanted to see the business mature. So it's also important that when we are driving investment alpha, that we're also driving organizational alpha, because no one wants to be invested in a venture, regardless of how brilliant you are doing the work, if they cannot understand the business model and its sustainability, right? So that is, I think, what we worked on during the time I was at Aeon, was saying, as if you are the founder, you understand the vision of where you want to take this business. But let's talk about the business itself. Like, you are an excellent investment professional, brilliant at, financial management as well. But now let's talk about how you position this business and how you translate its narrative to stakeholders who are watching, so that they are convinced to buy in and actually put money down, right? And once they put money down, you work as hard as possible to keep that relationship in place. Yes. So I think that's one of the key things. First and foremost, people must remember investment excellence has to be there. Organizational capability has to be proven and sustainable. And also, your client trust is number one. Like, if you don't have those three components, it's over. But to the latter part of your question, what advice to to boutique asset managers? It's a tough environment, Diana. It's a very tough environment. You're seeing the likes of your BlackRock, your Vanguard, coming in and doing partnerships, and seeking to enter the South African market. You are seeing that emerging markets, are becoming a big part of the playbook. We're seeing, what is it? Actively managed ETFs are also becoming part of the conversation very strongly. Private markets, private credit. So if your boutique and your strategy that you offer to the market is narrow, that is now the challenge.
So if you're niche, it's a challenge. But then
It,
again, how do you stand out when you're doing the same thing everyone else is doing?
but then again, I have a contrarian view. Um, it's fine to be niche as long as you're breaking even. If you're not already breaking even, it's getting touchy for you. Um, Cost management has to be at a whole nother level. You have to be very efficient in that. And then the other side I would say is, because there's a lot of talk around consolidation in our industry, right? And I have the belief that one of the things I used to track was, how of the top 50 retirement funds in South Africa, how many of them are Aeon's clients, right? And I think at the highest we had like 15 of them as clients out of the top 50. And I was like, there's still like a whole 35 that we've never reached, but we have already attained some level of great success, right? But one of the things that I would stress was, you have to stick in your own lane. If your lane is you are breaking even, you have client trust, and they're going to keep their money committed to you, then you can outlast, you can outwork, right? Only have the consolidation decision or conversation when it's going to be about bolstering the offering that you're going to have, because not everybody needs to chase scale. Some people, they don't need scale to be successful. I mean, we didn't have as much scale, and we still succeeded. We had scale in assets, but in terms of um, the strategies, I think we only had three strategies. Our staff complement was under 20 for most of the time. How the business model was arranged. So I'm just saying, you have to run your own race. stay in your own lane. Yes, look at what's happening in the market, but if you're there, if you're at that sweet spot, keep going.
You've got a good chance of surviving.
You've got a good chance of surviving in your lane. It's only if you are trying to scale that maybe now you have to have a different conversation with yourself. Yeah.
So I read a stat
hope
that
that makes it-
said you are
Yeah.
I read a stat that said only about 10% of institutional money is managed by Black asset managers. The number could be different today in 2026, but I want to find out from you where you sat, on the C-suite table, seeing other peers in the market. Would you say that we are transforming as an industry?
So the 10% of
A
assets
savings pool.
is South African
So sitting with Black asset managers.
Black asset managers. So I've heard that statistics before. So that stat has been floating for a long time in our industry. But I will say where I read it. I remember reading it in a 27 for
Oh yeah.
at the time it used to call BE economics, but
Yeah.
now it's the DI economics survey. So what I would redefine that question is to say, if we're looking at the power of transformation and policy around it, then I would say let's be subjective. Let's look at us.
Okay.
You're sitting here, Black woman, chartered financial analyst, very experienced in the industry, in a great role, in a great company. Do you not think that a big part of what played in you being here is transformation?
Oh.
Yes. The policy, right? The policy that then informed the decision making when allocation of decisions will be made in terms of who we hiring, who we giving a bursary to, who we giving sponsorship to study a certain thing, whose role is getting, what is the word,
Promoted.
promoted and
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? So I would say from a us perspective, we have benefited, right? But back to your question around the industry, it's slow? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Well, I want to know what your thoughts are. Is it slow?
Sure. Okay. Um, it's slow when one looks at it from the stats and the time frame that it's happening in, right? But when you look at the multiplier effect of the decisions that have been taken because we have transformative policies in place in our country, we also need to remember, as much as the financial markets in South Africa and the landscape is highly regarded globally and also is what is the word, quite mature, our country is still a developmental state. And because we are still a developmental state, there are certain decisions that we need to take at policy level to ensure that we continue bringing a lot more of the majority into the benefits of the prosperity and the social contract of things actually working for them. So what I'm going to say is our industry fully representative? When I look at the bank CEOs, when I look at the CEOs and the board representation of a lot of the organizations, whether you're looking at asset managers or banks or mines, or that you're seeing it, right? Maybe when you look at the middle level, you see this transformation there. But I always worry as well at the entry level.
Oh, yes.
When there is transformation at the entry level, what I'm concerned about is, okay, let me answer this actually. Let me backtrack.
Are we
When
not hiring enough junior people that are transformed? Is that what you're thinking?
no, I'm actually going to say years ago,
Yeah.
when Black asset managers were, especially Black professionals, were leaving larger established firms, right, to go out into market and start their own firms, it was because they were seeing that there was now a gap in the market where there was incubation mandates that were now being handed out by organizations like the PIC, right, and other multi-managers that were now starting to create this new, way of allocating capital, right? But then when we look at those firms today, a lot of them are well established. Some of them are managing 100 billion in assets under management. Some of them have grown even larger or are still, managing a certain pool of funds. But if you think about the genesis of their becoming, was that there was a policy in place And that policy then enabled them to go forth and start their dreams. And then their dreams flourished. And just like ASIF, they made room for others, right? So I would say transformation is working for our country because the multiplier effect of it has made room for someone like me to have a job, someone like you to have a job in the role you are, and others, right? But back to the younger analysts that I was trying to, or younger pool of people, it's also their entry point into this industry. It's one of the toughest industries to be in the South African, savings pool, especially for the institutional side. It's tough, but a lot of the people are getting entryway through these type of firms. And because these firms are, what is the word, the breeding ground of talent and capacitating them, yes, transformation is working for our industry, specifically our what is a framework of life. Yes, it's working, and I wouldn't remove it because I now worry, where's the training ground going to be? Where is the entry point going to be? Are we not shutting the door if we started making it too restrictive? That's my perspective. Yes, long answer, but I hope I connected the dots.
No, you did, absolutely did. And I think it's actually a good time for us to address our audience.
Okay.
We're coming to the latter end of the session. I have just a few rapid fire questions for Tshego before we hand over to you and take some of your questions. So please send them through in the chat and I will address them in the next 2 minutes, which is all the time I'm going to give Tshego to answer these next 4 questions.
Okay, cool.
Let's go. 1-word answers.
Huh?
1 word.
Okay.
5-sentence
Okay.
answers.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Best career advice you've ever received?
When it's time to leave. And I got this advice from Leon Camphor, and he was the he's actually he was a former co-founder and also the former CEO of Coronation Fund Managers. I know you said 1-word answers, but I have to give the context. He actually was one of the people when I became CEO. Asif had arranged that me and him should have a great chat, and over I think a 3-hour conversation, he just debriefed with me like, this is what you're gonna do and this is what you're not gonna do. But he said at the end, when it's time to leave. Do not linger. He's like, never hoard power. Don't hoard power. Don't hoard positions. Don't hoard title. When you've served and it's time to go, go.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay. One leadership habit that you still practice today?
Quiet time with journaling and intentional prayer and taking time to take stock of my thoughts.
Wow. One book that has changed your life?
Uh, The Master Key to Riches by Napoleon Hill. I read it when I was 13 years old, and it's still one of my best reads.
Wow, we were reading Harry Potter at that point in time.
I
It's
was-
good to know you were stimulating your bell.
And I was reading Harry Potter, but I had an affinity for autobiographies and books about business and stuff. And my dad actually had a copy of it in his library at home, and it was old. But when I read it, the first chapter is about having a definite purpose. I was blown away already.
Okay, and the last one is really about the sabbatical season that you're in. What's the one song that you'd say would define the season?
I have a lot of songs. I have a lot of songs.
Okay, 2.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I have sure. Can I have 3? Sorry, I'm pushing. Thank you, Diana. I would say Evidence by Naomi Rain. I love the lyrics. It's about just understanding and standing on the promises that you believe you've received from God, and I love that. Another one is I'm recently getting into jazz. There's a friend who got me into jazz. There's a song, Kerekeng by Herbie T. And Brahebi is amazing, and I love that song. It's about respecting people, having respect for people predominantly. And then the third one is I'm torn between, but there's a song by Maverick City called Firm Foundation. I love that.
Oh, love it.
Yes, those are the 3 songs.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So we're gonna hand over now to the audience, and I'm gonna take some questions that are coming through our team's chats. The first one is coming from Sianda, and she's asking, "How do you know when it's time to embrace change instead of resisting? And during difficult seasons, what has kept you motivated to keep going?"
So Sianda is asking, about change and not resisting it.
Yes.
So, Sianda, I will say this to you. Whether you do nothing or you do something, change is happening to you, regardless, right? But it is important to own your own development and your own, forward momentum, to have or live under the notion that you can leave that to someone else to do for you. That is a very bad career decision. So I would say you have to embrace change. I had to actually myself quite a few times. So now I've developed a mantra saying you have to be willing to disrupt yourself. So disrupt yourself before you have to be disrupted. Then that's how you stay ahead of change. And also that's how you don't have to deal with too much resistance to it, because you have already, conditioned yourself to be agile and capable of managing change. And I think then that's what motivates you, because you have that type of mindset. You become an overcomer and a pioneer automatically for your own lane, for your own journey.
Awesome. We also have a question here from Klingiwe, and she said, well, first of all, it's a comment saying that you are faith and vision personified. Thank you for that. And she wants to know what's next for Tshego.
Ooh, Shenjiwe, that is a private conversation with God. I'm just joking. So what's next for me is that I'm still in my sabbatical, actually. Looking to wrap it up. Still producing the charters table, but I'm now at a place where I've refined where I want to be with my life, and now I'm working towards it. I'm not at liberty to share at this moment in time exactly where I'm going to be next, but you guys can watch out for LinkedIn updates maybe in a few months in time. Yeah, but that's it. Thank you. Hope that answers it.
No, that does answer it. We also have another comment here. It's actually linked to something I wanted to ask you actually. So we've got Lihlo Nolo. Oh, please, I hope I'm not butchering.
Yeah.
So the comment said, "Love your faith. It's so beautiful how you wear it and understand who you are in Christ in the midst of it all." And I remember we were talking just before the session about how you encompass that in everything that you do. So I love that someone else also picked up on that.
Oh,
In all of
thank
your
you.
answers, it didn't have to be its own question. It just comes through in everything that you say.
Thank you very much. Very good.
Yes, I'm gonna ask Lebogang if there are any other questions. To please can send them through. We have 5 minutes left. And if they aren't, I do have one closing question for you. This is
Okay.
for everyone that's watching.
Mm-hmm.
If you could leave every woman here with just one message on building a career and a life of purpose, what would that be?
Okay. Can I actually leave one for them and then leave one for a leader who's potentially listening?
Yes.
Can I do that?
Yes.
Okay. So let me start with the leader, because then I can. If you're a leader and you're working with women, I have advice that you must listen actively to them. Women are by nature nurturers, critically thinking creatures, and also very capable of thinking through the details of things, right? But one of the things that I've realized is by the time a woman, whether she's in leadership position or she's just part of the team, decides to speak up about a specific thing, it's very important as a leader to actively listen and then follow up with implementation of what they've said. This will help in the sense that, given how they are framed to be as women nurturers, critical thinkers, able to look at the details, they tend to then be solution providers and innovators. And when you start tapping into that, it actually improves your business and its model. But the reason I'm speaking specifically that you must take note is that once a woman decides to speak up, you must know she has taken the time to craft her question or craft her point of view to the point that she's able to deliver it. So take it seriously. When we dismiss those, those interactions or those points of exchange, we are then in trouble of losing some of the best talent that we have. So that's my first one. And then for the woman building her career or your business, women are, you know what? Most people say, no, women must be more bold and stuff like that. No, you're already bold. A lot of women are really bold. I know a lot of female entrepreneurs who are building phenomenal businesses, leaders in our space. A lot of them are portfolio managers, analysts, or yourself, Diana. But what I've realized is sometimes we do not bet on ourselves. We do not bet on ourselves in terms of you're doing the work, but no one knows you're doing the work. You are silently, putting everything together, but you are not claiming the what is it? The spotlight for that contribution. And I'm not saying now we need to be spotlight hungry or hugging it. What is it? It's not hugging it. It's you mustn't what is it?
I think hungry was
Yeah, okay, hungry. Yeah, like you mustn't be spotlight hungry and then like you hold it off. No one else can be there. No, I mean that own what you are doing and make sure that you are attributing it to your contribution and your impact, because that impacts the conversations you have about your future. You know, being bold in that regard is that don't just be bold about talking about what you're doing when you are in the office, but then when it comes to a boardroom setting or a conversation with management, you shy away. Do not shy away. That's actually the perfect place to be having the conversation, having the feedback session about what you think you're bringing to the table, because conversations have the power to change or to pivot our trajectories. And when we're not having them in the rooms that we're supposed to be having them in, that's where we are doing ourselves a disservice. So it's very key to do that. That's how I see it. And then lastly, take the leap. Oh my gosh. Like if a door opens and you are terrified, I say take the leap. Some learning curves are steep for a reason, but you are here, you've proven yourself capable, you're capable of navigating it then further. Yeah.
Wow. We do have 4 more questions. I'm going to ask, do we have 5 more minutes?
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, perfect. If you could give yourself, or your younger self rather, one habit to develop a lot earlier, what would it be? This is Bongekile.
Okay, Bongikile. Younger self. Uh So I read a lot, but I realized that I shied away from speaking. So I would say what saved me was getting into debating, which helped me formalize my ability to speak in front of people. So I would say invest in being able to speak well. A lot of brilliant minds, but if you do not know how to articulate your point of view, not in closed conversations, but in open platforms, that can be, a career defining moment. So invest in that, because I invested in it when I was younger, but I wish I had done more of it. I feel that it would have been a greater skill to have perfected to another level. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good one on articulating yourself well.
Mm.
I've got another question. It's about looking back. What belief about leadership and investing in yourself did you have when you were in your 20s, but you later had to change in order to move to your next?
Ooh.
Yeah, good thing. Thank you, Bongekile.
I think the first one is I stopped being selfish. I think earlier on, I hope you guys got to catch that part of the conversation. When we were having the technical difficulties, I mentioned that during my schooling years, high school, I shied away from leadership because I just felt that it was not a necessity in my life, and I didn't want to be involved. But funny enough, at my school, there was a motto that everybody lived by, or we were taught, is that to whom much is given, much is required. And through the trajectory of my university and also later years, I started realizing that the more I received, the more then I had the responsibility to give. So that is one of the things I think for me that definitely changed, is that I became more intentional about, if Tshego has gotten 2 doors open, now go back and open 4 doors for someone else. Going back, yeah. So that intentionality, that's what actually creates impact, and the multiplier effect of it is that you're seeing others rise as you're rising, and da da da. Yeah, that's how we change our country.
Wow, that is actually in line with what Godfrey wrote. He said, "Lift as you rise." I'm so motivated by your story this evening. So thank you for that. And thank you for the comment there,
Thank you,
Godfrey.
Godfrey.
I'm going to just take one more. I do realize we're 2 minutes over time due to the technical difficulties. Lady Nom said, "Your passion is promoting the entrepreneurship culture is very commendable. Well done. Thank you for that comment. I
Thank
really
you.
loved it. And
Thank you.
there was one top question that was asked. It's about what feedback was the hardest for you to hear, but you think ended up changing the trajectory of where you are now?
There's a lot of feedback. There was a lot. There was a lot. You know what, Ne? I think one of the things we didn't touch on is the mistakes I made. I made a lot. Um, as a team, we made mistakes. I'm now speaking Aeon as well. As a leader, you make mistakes and you hope to learn. You don't hope, you learn from them and then you do better. But then in some instances, there's a cost already that's been paid, right? Um, Feedback point for me would be it's a positive, but it's also negative. Um, I tend to not want to. No, actually, let me answer this right. You can't mother people. I remember that was a feedback point that I once got. And this was not just like a work. What is it? Sphere. It was also like in church. You can't mother people. You need to allow people to grow into themselves and make their own decisions. And after they've made the decisions, deal with the consequences, right? But I was also a believer that no, sometimes we just didn't know better. So someone must be there to cover you, right? And that can work sometimes for you as a leader, and sometimes it can backfire very badly. So I think for me, I felt that I was being personified as a mother. Not that there's anything wrong with motherhood, no, but I was feeling like, but that's nurturing, that's caring, that's making sure that, whoever you've brought into the floor, they are going to succeed. That I struggled for a long time with that type of feedback because I was like, how do I disengage who I am naturally because this is the criticism that's on the table? But then you realize that there are extremes. You have to be careful with the extreme.
Yeah.
You can't be on one end of the spectrum or the other side. You need to be a balanced. Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one last question. This
Okay.
one comes from Unilisa. I'm not sure if it's the same Unilisa that's on the charters table. There's no last name on the chat. Say, if you were to summarize your life in one quote or one song, what would it be?
I think um there is a scripture in the Bible. It's Ephesians 2 verses 10. People who know me know that I love the scripture. It says that you are God's masterpiece created in Christ Jesus to do great things for which he has planned in advance for you to do. I feel that I'm the living testimony of that.
Wow.
Yes. So that's my answer to Yonelisa. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you for that. We are at the end of our session. I had a chance to look at the chat and it's so exciting. She's just an inspiring and powerful story to share. Definitely worth sticking around for. So thank you, Leklo Nololo. That was a good one. And then Nabila also said it's so inspiring. So I'm glad that you guys are finding this very inspiring. This is what the hope was. We're so glad that you stuck around till the very end, but also to my guests. Wow,
Thank you.
what
No,
a pleasure.
thank you, Tanya.
We've learned so much from you. There's so much you can take away from your story. You've been honest in sharing your lessons that you've learned, as well as giving us advice on both how to be a leader, entrepreneurship, and really speaking up as women, in this field. So thank you so much for joining us today, Teho. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Diana. I appreciated the way you prepared and how you took us through the journey of my life. Reflecting on it has been good. But I also want to thank ABSIP. ABSIP Forever has a very close part of my heart because you opened the door to access an opportunity in a way that people don't understand how important it is. So, AWIF thank you so much for wanting to have me on your platform and the incredible work that you do in empowering and setting up women in our space and beyond to be more dynamic, effective leaders, but also being their cheerleader as they're going along that process. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who listened into the conversation. And yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. She did half my job for me.
Oh,
So much.
sorry. I wanted to say
I
a personal
love,
thank you.
I love that you
Thank you.
did. All
Yes.
that's left to say is thank you. Have a lovely evening. And we will share a link to the session for you to watch and also share with those that may not have made it today.
Yes.
Once again, thank you. Have a lovely evening from
Yeah.
myself and Tshego.
Yes. Thank you.